Okay, so you learned web design and want to know what to do when you get a client, or maybe you already have a client but just want to know how to manage their project. Well, this is the exact system I use to manage my clients' projects and make sure that they're happy and satisfied, and also make sure that I don't do a million revisions and then be underpaid for the project as a result. Now, the first step, even before you open Figma, is onboarding, so let's talk about that. Now, with onboarding, the first step that happens in onboarding is you get on a call and you ask the client some questions to understand their business better. And listen carefully to these steps, because if you mess up the onboarding, the rest of the project is just going to feel like hell. So, in the call with the client, the questions you're going to ask is number one, you want to know what business or niche it is. Very simple, no need to go over that anymore. The second thing, what services or products are they selling? And this is very important to know, because some companies may have more than one product or service that they're selling, so you always want to make sure that you know what they're doing. And also, when you're asking them about their product or service, make sure to get more details than just the surface level information. So let's say they're a realtor and they're helping people buy and sell homes. Ask them to just go deeper into what happens during the service. So maybe they have onboarding, maybe they talk to the client and they need to send some paperwork, maybe they're helping with some small steps within that service that maybe others are not doing. So you have to really get in deep into it, because just like web design, all the services and products have more than one aspect to it. And then the third is you want to understand who their ideal clients are. And this is very important, because what you want to basically get out of them is who do they want to sell more to. And for this, you first want to get some demographic data, so age group, location, gender, really simple data. And then you want to go into the psychographic data, and this is where you really want to get creative and really ask deep questions. So you need to understand, one, the problems that their ideal clients have that the company or business is solving for them. And this is really going to uncover those pain points that the clients have, that you're going to eventually be able to use in your website. The second thing is the desires they have. What is the state that they want to be in? And I'll just give you an example. Somebody, let's say, wants to buy a course on how to become a better salesman or how to sell better. They don't want to buy the course to just become a better salesman, even though that's what the course is intended for. They want to get that course because they want what comes after becoming a better salesman, which is more sales, more money, a better lifestyle, and more freedom. So you have to dig deep and understand what's the underlying cause, what's the underlying desires that they have. And then also, you want to understand what are some of the possible things that might be holding them back from buying. So these could be doubts about the product, or maybe they've had a prior bad experience with the same service or product, in which case you want to make sure that in your website you showcase that your client is not like the others. And there are different ways to do that, but that's a topic for another video. Right now, let's go to the kickoff. And actually, before I go to the kickoff, the avatar, you can have fun with this. Like, you could, after you get some demographics, go to ChatGPT or any AI and ask it to give you a image of what that person will look like, and just life create a whole day in a life for them. Maybe they wake up, this is what they think about, these are their pain points. They go on, I know, social media, maybe they scroll a bit, this is what they see. So really try to get deep into who they are and what they do on day-to-day basis, on and how you can sell better to them. So now going to the kickoff stage. This is where you're going to structure your offer, and then you're going to set the price and give it to the client to agree upon a price. Now, when you agree upon a price, you're probably going to have to send them a contract of sending you the initial payment for the website, and then maybe the timeline of the project, what they're getting from that website, what you're delivering to them, and then what they're paying you. And if you can make it so they can sign the contract and send the initial payment right away on the call, that's the best thing to do. But if you can't, one really important thing is deadlines. You want to have deadlines, because if you leave it to the client, they're probably going to forget it, or maybe they're not going to forget it, but they're going to delay it for a lot. And what you want to do is you want to have deadlines and then have consequences for not meeting the deadlines. And this doesn't have to be really big consequences like cutting them off, abandoning them, or not delivering the website. It could be small consequences like extending the timeline for the project because you have other projects that you're also doing with theirs, and you can't manage something that is being sent late to you. So always have deadlines. That's really important. And after this stage, we go into the sitemap. And the sitemap, this is really important to get right, because the sitemap is like the map to your website. That's what it basically is. That's what the name says, sitemap. And with the sitemap, what you want to do is have a simple layout of the pages that you're gonna have, and maybe also sub pages. And the sitemaps could be simple like this one, or they could really be, you could have a really big project where you have a lot of sub pages, and it could be really big like this one. So you have to understand what the niche is, and after you understand what the niche is, you have to talk with your client to see what they want, and maybe you can throw in some other pages that they might need, and depending on what they say, you can keep that or not keep that. And always make sure that before moving on to the next stage, you get a confirmation from your client that the sitemap is okay. And expanding on this a bit, you usually want there to be a minimal amount of revisions, so it's important that you set a standard for how many revisions. So for me, a standard rule I use is 1-1-1. So basically what this is you have 3 revisions, one for the sitemap stage, and this is really simple, and the clients probably usually don't have a problem with this, because a sitemap, usually there's not much to it, so one revision is more than enough. The second one is for the wireframe and the homepage. Or wireframe, I guess, goes with the sitemap, so you could also include that here. But the other revision is for the homepage, because I'll go deeper into this why the homepage is separate, but you don't want to have more than 1 or 2 revisions, because then that's gonna be a lot of work for you. And then the third revision I usually have is for all the other pages other than the homepage. And what this really does is it sets a standard where the client isn't just gonna throw out suggestions. Oh, can we try this? Can we try that? Because what they think is, oh, I'm asking them to change one small thing. It's not gonna be a problem. But for you, those small things are gonna pile up into a lot of lost time. So having a set number of revisions is gonna help you not be underpaid. And then let's say they want to go over the number of revisions, then you can start charging them for however the big the revisions are. Now, after we finish with the site map, we go into the wireframes. And for the wireframes, right? Don't overcomplicate it. Just have a simple wireframe with sections that you're going to have, and then also the label those sections. And for the wireframe, you don't really need to worry about text or color so far. You just, like, this one is a perfect example. You just have some boxes for where the images are gonna go, and then your headlines, and then places for the buttons. You really don't need much more than this. You don't even need color in this stage. And then moving on, this is where you decide your fonts and then your color palette that you're going to use. And this is very important because it has a huge effect on how the visitor sees the business, and it has a really big role on trust. And now I will have a longer video on fonts and colors and how they work with the website, because you really have to go deep into color psychology to understand what colors or fonts you can use. So make sure to subscribe and like to stay tuned for those upcoming videos. But for now, you can use some of these tools to help you out. First one is mycolor.space, and then the other one is fontpair.co. And these are great tools for choosing your fonts, pairing your fonts, and then choosing your color palettes for the website. So definitely check those out. And then moving on to the one of the last steps is copywriting. Now, you might or might not be familiar with what the term copywriting is. Copywriting is essentially writing copy. And what copy is the email that you get, it's a form of a copy. The website is a copy. Anything that is used to sell or persuade is a copy. So, for copywriting, basically what you're going to have to do is, or let me rephrase it. So, basically, when you're at this stage of the website, you have the wireframe. The website needs to sell to the right audience, and since you already know the pain points and desires of the audience, you have to tailor each copy, or in this case, headlines, subheadings, paragraphs, to sell to them directly. So, for this step, have a clear goal of what you want each section to achieve. So this could be introduction to something new. This could be building trust. This could be CTAs, which, if you don't know what a CTA is, it's basically a call to action where you persuade the person or visitor to do something. So this could be in the form of buttons. You see a lot of buttons where they have like a button with learn more. Sorry for my terrible writing here, but that's a form of a CTA. Or you have whole sections that are CTAs where it's persuading you to maybe book a call. So that's what a CTA is. Then what you basically want to do after you understand what each section is going to be doing, what each section's mission is, you want to write out what the headings and the subheadings and the paragraphs and the buttons are going to be saying for each of those sections. And you want to have, basically, you want to have it as personalized as you can. So really important, do not overuse AI on this. Some people just leave it all up to the AI, but you have to revise. You can use AI to give you ideas, but revise and make it tailored to sell, because people buy from people. There's that connection when the person behind the website is actually human and not an AI. And then for this, what I usually like to do is open a blank document on Docs or Word or whatever you like to use, and just start labeling. So, first one, what I did here, an example, home section, headline. This is, I imagined what a website's hero section would look like for a fitness program. So, headline, fit before summer. And then subheading, finally be able to proudly take your shirt off at the beach. And then you have a paragraph and then some buttons. Now, for the headings, you basically want to give a intro to what the section is about. The subheading should have a clearer explanation for what you're basically selling, or the dream state that you're selling. Never directly sell them a dream, not the product. And then you have your paragraph. So paragraph is usually just more general info about the product or service with some emotional turmoil. And then you have buttons, and basically this is the actions you want people to take. And then you do this for each of the sections. Very, very clear. No need to overcomplicate it. And then the next step is your, basically when you put it all together. And when you put it all together, first section you want to build is your home section, because the home section will actually dictate the whole website. And this is which is why it's so important to have a revision in this step, because in this step, when you can let the client have a revision, basically you're going to have that same sort of style in the whole website. So when they revise on the home section, you already know what they're going towards and after. So basically you won't have as many problems, roughly said, with the client. But basically the home section is the first thing you build. When you get to the building stage, it's really important. You put it all together, you send it to the client, and based on their answer you continue forward. And another really important point here, when you send the client updates, don't just send them a picture or a message. Send them a Loom video showing what you did and explaining why you did it, and explaining why that is the best way. Because here's the thing, the clients do not understand design. You do. And sometimes the client may ask for a revision that that it's gonna just make everything worse. So it's really important to have a detailed explanation of why you're doing things, and always keep in touch with the client, because one is gonna make sure that the website is actually good in the end, and not just a result of some revisions from the client that don't really make sense, but they just like to see it that way. And then two, you're gonna build a better relationship with the client, which is really important onward, because the relationship doesn't end when you launch the website. It usually starts when you launch it. So really important. And then once you have the homepage, you go back to the sitemap and wireframes and just build the whole website. And usually what happens is, you, for the pictures and the headings that you're gonna put in from your copywriting, usually you have some images from the client that the client sends to you. Sometimes the client sends you more than enough, sometimes they don't send you enough. So when that happens, you usually can pull some stock images from Google. One I like to use is Pexels. I'll put that down in the description with the other tools. And or you can also create custom elements for the business. And this is really for more of the higher end projects where the client can actually pay you to create custom components. And whenever you do have these type of clients, it's always great. They're willing to pay and you can have fun on the project. But if not, you can always use stock images from Pexels, and that's gonna be more than enough. Now, one last thing that I do want to share with you guys is, when you're onboarding a new client, always hold the frame of control. So don't market yourself too much, because when you do that, subconsciously they're thinking that you're maybe insecure, that you want to show something, that because you in yourself don't radiate that value, if that makes sense. But what you want to do is always be the one that is asking questions. And yeah, sure, if the client has maybe some questions about your work, your experience, you can answer those briefly, but always be the one asking them more questions and speak less, because in that way, first, they feel like you actually care because you're asking questions, you're listening, and don't interrupt them when they're speaking. That's another good point. Second, when you're talking less, as a result, you're naturally going to be more confident. You're going to seem more confident in your skills. And don't ask me why. I know it sounds confusing, but it's just the way that our brains work. So if this was helpful, make sure to press a couple of buttons down below, subscribe, like, share. Those are just a couple of buttons that takes you a second to click, but they really help me out put more of these videos to help you guys.